Donald Trump proposed his tax plan yesterday, and the best way to describe it is the Bush tax cuts on steroids. So I'm going to get into all the specifics here, and you're going to see why this is such a colossally disastrous tax plan. So this is journalist Zach Carter, and he lays it out for us. He says, President Donald Trump's top economic advisors on Wednesday proposed trillions of dollars in tax cuts for millionaires under a plan billed as the biggest tax reform in over 30 years. All right, let me pause real quick. When he says President Donald Trump's top economic advisors, you know who he's referring to? Who rolled out this plan and who was responsible for crafting this plan? Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohn. You know who they are? Goldman Sachs lackeys. Literally. Mnuchin was with them for about 17 years. He also ran One West Bank, which was responsible for foreclosing on countless numbers of senior citizens. And you have Gary Cohn, who was the president of Goldman Sachs. The president of Goldman Sachs. So these are two top economic advisors from a criminal organization, literally. Remember, fraud was the business model at Goldman Sachs. They took these toxic subprime mortgage packages that they knew were dog shit. They paid for a fake AAA rating from the ratings agencies. It's pure corruption. This was garbage. But they paid for the rating agencies to say, no, it's the best investment you can make is AAA. They sold them to unsuspecting clients, telling them they're going to get rich. Then they turned around and bet on those same packages to fail. That is fraud. These are criminals. They should be in jail. You go rob a liquor store, you get caught with some marijuana, you get years behind bars. These guys and their greed and recklessness crashed the fucking economy, and now they run it. They run our tax policy. It's unbelievable. We're run by a criminal gang. Okay, let me continue. He says, in a one-page statement of principles for tax reform provided to reporters, the administration offered few specifics. They did insist on three major perks for the wealthy. However, reducing the tax rate on stocks, bonds, and real estate investments, eliminating inheritance taxes, for millionaire heirs and heiresses, and bringing down the tax rate on the largest corporations to less than half of what it is now. The inheritance tax, disparaged by conservatives as a death tax, only applies to millionaires. Magnates must will at least $5.45 million to their heirs, $10.9 million for couples, to qualify for the tax. Heirs and heiresses pay an average rate of 16.6% on these inheritances, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, generating about $275 billion for the government over 10 years. Okay, let me pause there. As Bill Maher likes to say, you have to tax people in a society. In order to have a functioning civil society, you need to get money from somewhere. You need to get funds from somewhere. Who better to tax than rich, dead people? The real name of this tax is the estate tax. But the Republicans, with their shitty framing, which actually works, unfortunately, on propaganda grounds, they say, no, it's the death tax. So middle-class people, poor people, regular people go, well, I'm going to die one day. I'm against that tax. I want to pass my money off to my kids. No, you're going to be able to. In fact, even if you make even if you have $4.5 million, you're not hit by this tax at all. It only applies to people with fucking estates. It's not even just the top 1%. It's the top 0.02%, I think it is. Guys, are you kidding me? So this is a tax on estates, the richest people in the country, and it just takes some of the money that they would hand off to their shitty, bratty, Paris Hilton-like son or daughter, and you're going to have the Republicans who claim they believe in pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They're arguing for unlimited inheritance, where you can have a spoiled brat who's done nothing, who's rich, simply because they're a member of the Good Sperm Club. Daddy was an entrepreneur who made a lot of money, and I'm just going to get it, and we're going to pass on the wealth through generations and create, a giant swath of Paris Hiltons. What happened? I thought you said, well, money seeps your incentive. No, that's only for poor people when it comes to them getting welfare. When it comes to rich people, give them the money, give them the money, give them the money. And all we're talking about is a little tax on people who have about $5 million or more. All this is a heist where you're robbing from the middle class and giving to the rich. I just told you. And this is $275 billion the government loses. You know who's going to make up for that? The middle class and the poor. So they shift the tax burden from rich dead people to middle class people and poor people. They're not looking out for you. They claim like, oh, we're going to cut taxes for those people. But you're not. That's not cutting taxes for them. That's cutting taxes for the rich. Okay, let me give you more. Trump would also repeal the 3.8% tax on stocks, bonds, and real estate investments that Obamacare imposed on individuals making at least $200,000 a year. So again, over $200,000, they want to cut it for you, not for middle class and poor. A full 90% of this tax break would accrue to households making at least $700,000 a year, which would receive an average tax cut of $25,000 a year, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center. Slashing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 15% would cost the federal government $2.4 trillion, according to the Tax Policy Center. Okay, let me pause again. Guys, when they say they're deficit hawks, they're liars. They're lying to you. We care that these goddamn Democrats always driving up the deficit. Hold on now. Obama inherited a $1.4 trillion deficit. He cut it to about $600 billion. Now, you might say, hey, that's not enough, but he cut the deficit. Here we're talking about this would cost the federal government $2.4 trillion to cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 15%. Corporations are already paying a historic low percentage of the tax burden. And they want to cut it even more. Now, by the way, when they say it's a 35% tax rate on corporations, that's not true. That's what's called the nominal rate. The nominal rate is just what it is on paper. After you account for all the loopholes and all the deductions and all the fuckery that corporations get because they have a team of lawyers working around the clock to find a way to weasel out of paying their taxes, the effective tax rate for U.S. corporations is what? 12%. So on paper, it's 35%. So all these bobblehead idiots who are doing propaganda go out there and say, oh my God, highest corporate tax rate in the world, 35%. Oh my God, these poor corporations, pity the oppressed corporations. They say that, but the reality is they're really paying, the effective tax rate is 12% for corporations, which is one of the lowest in the modern world. Now, what Trump wants to do, cut it from 35% to 15%. And then they say to you, yeah, but we're going to eliminate loopholes and deductions. Oldest trick in the book. You say you're going to do that and you don't do it. So you just lower the tax rate and still keep the deductions. Or you put them in initially and then later on you slip into various bills that have nothing to do with it, like a farm bill or something, bringing back those deductions and loopholes again like that. That's what they did with Dodd-Frank. We passed historic Wall Street reform. And then they would jam in like a farm bill later on. Anyway, we're going to repeal this regulation on Wall Street and that regulation on Wall Street, and you dismantle the bill piece by piece. So it is a ruse. It is a ruse to do the bidding of the corporations. You've been had, you've been took, you've been bamboozled. All right, let me give you more. The Trump team also said they want to simplify the number of tax brackets from 7 to 3, reducing the top rate from 39.6 to 35%. Trump's team did not specify what income levels would apply to the new brackets, but fewer tax brackets typically results in lower taxes on upper income individuals. They further said they would protect deductions for mortgage interest, a perk that disproportionately benefits the wealthy, shocker, delivering larger benefits to people who buy bigger houses. And Trump said he would double the standard deduction, which would exclude more household income from taxation. Okay, so now this is the part of the bill where, and I haven't seen a single media outlet point this out, which is maddening because it's literally what it is. Trump wants to go directly back to the Bush tax cuts when it comes to the marginal rate. So we're talking about a historic gutting of the corporate tax rate when the corporations are already paying a historic, low amount of the tax burden in the country. We're talking about eliminating the estate tax, which is just a giant giveaway to the wealthy. And on top of all that, we're talking about going directly back to Bush's top tax rate, which is just a giant tax cut for the top 1%. So every level of this plan is geared towards the rich doing class warfare on the middle class and the poor and wrecking the budget in the process. And again, not a single outlet I've seen has described this accurately as the Bush tax cuts on steroids. That's exactly what he's proposing here. So, guys, I don't know if you know this. We have the historical evidence as to what happens when you do this. So remember, the two major things that lead to crashes: giant tax cuts for the rich and what? Deregulation. What has Donald Trump been doing? Executive order after executive order doing deregulation, and he's doing now giant tax cuts for the rich. Guess what? That led to the Great Depression later on under Reagan when he did the same philosophy. When he got out of office, we had a giant recession. And then when you had under Glass-Steagall under Bill Clinton, and then further deregulation under George W. Bush, tax cuts for the rich married with deregulation, we had the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession. Every time throughout history you implement far-right economics, which is deregulation and tax cuts for the rich, you have boom-bust cycles. Everything takes off. Oh my God, the market's doing so great. The good times are going to last forever. And everything crashes and it fucking burns. We're going to go through the same goddamn thing now because they don't care about the lessons of history, because all they care about is letting their corporate donor buddies run out the back door with all the money. That's all this is about. Give the rich more money. Let them get away with whatever they want to get away with because they own the White House. Goldman Sachs controls our economic policy, and everybody else suffers in the meantime. This is a cruel joke, is what it is. It's not even a question. We already know. The facts are there. The data's there. The historical evidence is there. We're going to have another gigantic crash. They're just making it inevitable and making it happen sooner. So this can't possibly be. Either he's got the dumbest people in the world in his administration that don't recognize these historical facts, or they know, but they just don't care because, hey, I just care about me and my buddies getting more money and getting rich. So that's what this is. The Bush tax cuts on steroids. It's a worst case scenario bill.